Hello everybody, it's Murray here and welcome back to my channel, M Stuart Paintings. On today's acrylic painting tutorial we're going to paint this gorgeous sunset seascape of an ocean beach. So let's get into it. So a nice and easy tutorial today. We're going to use the following colours. They are titanium white, Naples yellow, cad yellow, matte orange, matte pink, cerulean blue, cobalt blue, sap green, iris purple, burnt umber and matte black. Now I've got a burnt sienna painted canvas here today and I've put the horizon right in the middle. So I've put a horizon line right in the middle of an A4 canvas. I've got the sun just above it. We're going to have some ocean, we're going to have a big wave, we're going to have some sea froth, we're going to have some wet sand, and then we're going to have a beach. So if anyone would like to jot down the outline, please do so. All I'm going to do, just like usual, I'm just going to get some cobalt blue and I'm just going to block in the shadows while everyone is just copying down the outline. You can always pause the video if you want to just jot down the outline. But all I'm doing is just putting some cobalt blue just so I know where all the shadows are. So when we paint in and block it in now, I just know where everything is. So we're going to paint at real time today, so we're going to go nice and slow. We're going to do a step-by-step tutorial. So I'm going to use some titanium white for the sun. And I'm going to use some cad yellow and I'm just going to create some heat around the sun. So we're going to go nice and slow. It's a beginners to intermediate tutorial. We've got some Naples yellow here. Now to make Naples yellow, all you do is take cad yellow, lots and lots and lots of white and a dot of black just to make it a little bit desaturized and take some of the yellow out. So all you do is just have cad yellow, lots and lots of white and a dot of black, and you should get this creamier yellow which is called Naples yellow. Yeah, so we're going to paint along at real time. As I say, don't worry if your work while we're just blocking it in is streaky. Acrylics, because they're water based, come out streaky when you lay it on the canvas. You don't have to paint your canvas burnt sienna. I always paint my canvas burnt sienna simply for the fact you can see here when I'm using light colours, I can see where I need to add more paint and I need to work over it. So that's why I always use a dark colour rather than a white background. So we're going to add some heat to the mix. We're going to add some Naples yellow and we're going to add a little bit of orange and a little bit of cad yellow just to make a sort of peachy colour. We're going to add a tiny bit of pink just to warm it up a little bit, and we should get a lovely sort of peachy light orangey colour. So all we're doing, we're just creating sort of a shape of some clouds, and all that is the heat as it cools, the colour gets a little bit darker. So we just imply that by using some orange and pink into the mix. So all I'm doing, I'm using a round-headed brush, sort of a medium-sized brush, and I'm just blocking it in. As I say, you'll probably get some streaks. We'll dry our background and we'll go over it, but we just want to block everything in. Now we're going to create some of this light purple. To do so, all you do is create iris purple, which is lots and lots of white and some purple and a dot of black, just like Naples yellow. So lots and lots of white, a bit of purple and a dot of black, and you should get this cool purple. If you have purple that tends to be on the reddy side, you can always just add a little bit of blue to your purple just to make it more cooler, to get this more lavender tone. And all we're going to do is mix some Naples yellow into the mix, so we have a mixture between yellow and that whitey creamy purple. And all we're doing, we're just trying to imply that the sky is getting cooler in colour and tone as it goes upwards. So if you think the sun is at the horizon, so the sun is just above the horizon and the sun is incredibly vibrant and bright, so all the heat and colour will be around it, and as the colour sort of fades out, the sky gets darker in tone, it gets more bluer. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to imply that. So we have Naples yellow around the sun, and then we have this lighter, more cooler colour by adding purple and white to our Naples yellow to get this sort of in-between colour. So try to create sort of a straight line, and then we'll go straight to purple and white. So purple, lots and lots of white and a dot of black. If you don't have this cool iris purple, I know it's quite hard to find in shops, you can always make it by just getting normal purple, add in some blue to your purple and add a little bit of white and a dot of black. And that's how you get iris purple. So look, all we're doing, we're getting cooler in tone. As I say, don't worry about the streaks, that's quite normal. And then we're going to go to a cool purpley blue. So to make that purpley blue, all you do is you get, I've got mine pre-mixed, so I'm going to show you. You get some cerulean blue and you get some cobalt blue. So cerulean blue is a bit more turquoise. Add plenty of cerulean blue, a little bit of cobalt blue, some white and a dot of purple and a dot of black, and you should get this lovely cool blue that I've got here pre-mixed. So cerulean blue, cobalt blue, a dot of purple, a little bit of white just to make it a bit more pastel, and a dot of black just to suck some of the colour out, and you should get this lovely cool purpley blue. So all I'm going to do is mix the two tones together. So I'm just mixing the more whitey purple with the new blue just to create an in-between, and I'm just creating X shapes. And all I'm doing, so look, even though it looks pretty streaky, it looks sort of like a sort of chunky mess at the moment, but don't worry, we're just going to go over it. So look, just by reapplying the same colours and putting a second coat of acrylic paint onto our canvas, can you see now it just gets rid of all the streaks and makes the colours much more vibrant. So we're just going to go over it for a second time and we're just going to rework it. So I'll zoom in for you because a lot of people I know at home want to see exactly what I'm doing. So I'm using a big round headed brush. So they don't have to be expensive, but all it is quite soft, and we're just going to the peach colour. So do you remember it was orange, plenty of Naples yellow and a dot of pink, and we should get a nice peachy tone. And all I'm doing is adding a dot of purple, just like black. It just sucks a little bit of the colour out, makes it more earthy. So look, all I'm doing while the paint is wet, I've got this big, really soft, round-headed brush. It's a little bit damp, so it's nice and moist, so it glides across the canvas. And all I'm doing, look, I'm just creating X shapes and merging the two colours. So I'm merging the yellow into the peach colour. So watch, I'm just creating X shapes, really gently pressure, and I'm just creating soft to the touch blending. So now all we're going to do, now that the canvas is a bit drier, we're just going to apply the second colour. So it was a yellow, Naples yellow mixed with that cool lavender purple. So Naples yellow, which is white, a little bit of cad yellow, a little bit of that purple, but predominantly white, and a dot of black, and you should get this colour. So look, all we're doing, look, you can see the difference just by applying two coats of paint. So as I say, when you're watching it real time and not on a really sped up time lapse, you can actually see what we're doing. So look, just by creating these X shapes, so think of like rocking back and forth, like a how you would rock a child almost. So we're just going back and forth, creating X shapes, and then I'm easing up on the pressure. I'm not pushing down as hard, I'm just letting the paintbrush glide across the canvas, and what it does is it merges into the previous colour. So look, we're taking out all the streaks and we're getting cooler in colour and tone as we move up. So now we're going to have no yellow, we're just going to have purple, lots and lots of white, and a dot of black. So purple, lots and lots of white, and a dot of black to make this really lovely pastel light purple. And all we're doing, look, watch, X shapes. So like you're rocking something to sleep. Look, going back and forth, and just easing up on the pressure as you merge into the previous colour. So that's all you do, just gently release the pressure pushing down, so you're hardly touching it and the brush will just glide. So we're going to go to an in-between colour. We're going to mix that darky cool blue with that purple and white that we just mixed. So remember, it was cerulean blue, cobalt blue, plenty of white, a dot of purple and a dot of black. And all we're going to do is add the previous purpley and white colour, just to bridge the two together. And then lastly, we're just going to have that cool blue, and that will just frame the top of our painting. And when I zoom out for you, look, there we go. We've got this lovely gradual cooling of the colour. So we've done our background sky just by using brush techniques. So what we're going to do, I'm going to zoom in for you. I'm just going to show you, sometimes, look, just around my sun, you get streak marks with acrylics. That is totally normal. So all we're going to do is just reapply a little bit of Naples Yellow around our sun. It's got a tiny bit of cad yellow just to make it more yellow and vibrant. And I'm going to get some titanium white, and I'll just put back in my sun. And all we're trying to do is just, if we've got any horrible streaks or we've got anything really noticeable, because the sun is our central point and that's what the viewer is going to be focusing on, we just want to neaten it up. So we're just going to spend 2 minutes just making it a bit more professional, a bit more pretty. So there we go. So all I'm going to do is swap back to my big brush, and I'm just going to gently try to blend in some of this Naples Yellow into the previous tone, just because it had horrible streaks, so I'm just reworking it. So if you're painting along at home and you have anything like streaks or brush marks in your work, you can always dry your work with a hairdryer. Just get very little paint, get the colours that you want to reapply, and just rework areas just to make it look more pretty. So we're going to make some of that peachy orange colour. So that was Naples Yellow, orange and a dot of pink. And I'm just going to do the same trick. Oops, I put a bit too much pink into it, but never mind. We'll just merge it into that colour. So it's a little bit darker than previous, but don't worry, we'll just merge it in. So all I'm doing, look, I'm doing the same technique over and over again. I'm just making these little X shapes and just really gently pushing the two colours together so they merge really, really softly, and the transition in colour looks really realistic. So it looks like it has a nice glow around the sun. So again, it's the brush doing all the work. Now don't worry like me here, if you smeared your sun, don't worry, we can neaten it up again afterwards, there's no problems. But we just want to try to create sort of a nice sort of glow around our sun, just so it has a nice central focus point for the viewer. So you just go between two tones. So if you make it too yellowy around the sun, just go round with the orange. And if you make it too orangey, just go round the sun with the yellow. So look, by just using a little bit of a smaller brush, still a gentle round-headed brush, I'm just applying a little bit more Naples Yellow around. I'm just doing the same trick, but now I'm coming out to the side. And I'm just poking holes into the sky. Now what I'm trying to do is to create the impression of wispy clouds and some of that sunlight beaming through them. So again, just get a little bit of paint, not too much, and have your brush just a little bit damp but still quite dry, and just gradually touch down. If you put too much paint like I've just done here, where I've put a big blob, don't worry, we can smooth it out in a minute and make it look more wispy by just going over the top. So all we're trying to do is by adding a little bit of cad yellow to the Naples Yellow to make it look a bit more vibrant and yellow. We're just trying to imply. Now if you take all the paint off your brush and just have a dry brush, if you just give it a wipe on some cloth, you can just go over the top and just gently smooth it and just make it look a bit more wispy. So have no paint, just use your dry brush. So just take the paint off your brush and just go over the top and just glaze it. So look, it's just got a little bit of residue from the previous yellow colour, and you can just glaze it. And I'm just going to get some of that peach tone, and I'm just going to go around the bottom of the painting. Now a lot of this is going to be the horizon, but we just want to work it. So we just want to make it look like clouds passing our sun at the bottom of the horizon. So I'm just remaking the tone if it dries. I know a lot of people who follow me live in hot climates around the world. If you find your acrylics dry very quickly, what you can do is have a spray bottle, something that you would normally spray your plants with, just a little spray gun bottle, and you can just quickly spray your palette every, say, 10 minutes, and that will keep your acrylic paints from drying out. So look, all I'm doing, I'm just making it a bit more yellow, those clouds, and I'm just gently softening the areas around my sun just to imply the glow of the sun. And I'm just going to add a little bit more orange and a little bit more pink to make a darker version. So I've got more Naples Yellow for around the sun, and I've got more orange and pink for either side of the sun as the colour gets a bit cooler. And I'm just trying to imply wispy clouds. So as I say, this tutorial is more advanced. It is a beginners to intermediate tutorial, but there's nothing in the tutorial that is extremely hard. They're all very easy techniques. We're going to use colours to imply detail. So try to work on your blending and just take your time, just relax. And sorry, I'm a bit off camera here, but all I did was add a little bit more orange and a little bit more pink. I didn't realise how zoomed in I was. Sorry, my mistake. So by just adding a little bit more orange and pink, still plenty of Naples Yellow because we want to make it very nice and pastel, but we just want to apply some more heat. So by adding orange and pink, that just makes the tone look a bit darker, and it just makes it more vibrant, so it's a bit brighter, less pastel. And these are all the clouds that are getting a little bit less sunlight. They're moving away from the sun as they go up into the sky. So because they're moving away, they're getting a bit darker because they're getting less sunlight on them. And the same to our edges. We're just going to make our edges either side, so on the left, and we'll mirror that on the right. And these are all the areas that are just getting a little bit less sunlight because they're not in the middle where that sun is, so they're just getting a bit cooler. But we still want to use warm colours, so that's why we're using bright oranges and yellows. So look at that, really easy. There's no detail, it's all in the colours. And we're going to create some little clouds. So all I'm doing, I've got paint on my brush and I'm just scraping it against the canvas, and I'm just creating little shapes. We're going to add more pink to the mix. I'm sorry, it's off camera, I didn't realise how zoomed in I was. So we're just adding a little bit more pink to the mix. And when you see it finally, we've added a little bit more pink, and it's just getting a little bit redder in colour. So pink is just making your tone a little bit more redder in colour. Is that even a word? Redder. And it's just a bit more pinker, I guess. So we're just getting a little bit darker. So again, we're just implying shadows. So we're just trying to imply these areas. So we're just framing the sides. That these are all the parts of the cloud that are getting less sunlight. So they're just cooling in temperature and in colour. So look, if I zoom back out, does that work? So look, we've got nice glow around the sun. And just like our background sky that's getting cooler as it goes up because it's getting less sunlight, we're going to do that with colours. So by adding cool purple to that mix, So we've got orange, pink, Naples yellow, and now some cool purple. We're going to make some cooler colours. So just like our sky, as it gets more bluer and cooler, we're going to do the same trick with our clouds. But it's still got some pink and orange in it, so it's still got some Naples yellow, so it's very pastel. And all we're doing, we're just creating some splodges. We're just going to put some shadows on the tips of some of these clouds. We're just scraping against the canvas, so watch, we're just creating shapes, and we're just letting the brush flow against the canvas, and we're just creating lovely little wispy clouds. All I'm doing, I'm just merging it against the previous colour, just on the outline. So again, really softly, I've got barely any paint on my brush. I'm just pushing against the canvas. I'm just creating little shapes. So these are all the lovely wispy clouds as they fade off into the sky. You could do little ones, you could have big ones, it's totally up to you. So if I zoom in for you, they're no detail, they're just scruffy little clouds. And all we're going to do, we're just going to mix some of the previous tone. So to make the colour lighter, all you do is just add a little bit more orange and pink and some Naples yellow. And you can just glaze over the top, just have barely any paint on your brush. And you can just soften the areas, just like we did with the yellow. We're just going over the top with barely any paint, and we're just getting that chalky residue that's on our brush, and we're just glazing on top of that colour. So just by adding a little bit of Naples yellow, orange and pink, we just got that nice warm previous colour, and we're just smearing it into those harsher shadows that we just created. So that all we're doing, we're just going over the top and just glazing it, just so again the transitions don't look so harsh. Now we're going to add more of the cool purple, and we're just going to make it an even darker tone. So we're going to do the opposite, we're going to make a nice shadow tone, and we're just going to make some dark highlights, or dark shadows even, and we're just going to put some dark little clouds and edges to some of our clouds, and they're all the parts of the cloud that are getting barely any sunlight, so that's why they have a nice cool colour. So we don't want to put too much purple because we don't want to make these clouds very harsh. We want to keep it very pastel. And by keeping it wispy and keeping it light and pastel in tone, what it does is it pushes the background sky really far back. So look, all I'm doing, I'm just outlining it with barely any paint. So same technique, just gently pushing against the canvas. There we go. So look, now we've zoomed out. Can you see the colours? There's no detail, it's just the colours that are tricking your eye to make this look really realistic. So as I say, it's perfect for people wanting to learn how to paint. And we're just going to put our sun in because it was a bit scruffy. So all I'm doing, as I say many times, acrylics paint, it picks up the colour from underneath. So if you want to make your highlights vibrant, sometimes you just got to apply it twice or maybe 3 times. So if you get some cad yellow and Naples yellow and just make a really vibrant yellow, you can just go around it again and just emphasize the highlights by just reworking it. So as I say, it's not hard, it just takes patience and discipline. Just like anything, if you want to master anything, you just have to have patience and discipline. So again, I'm just trying to imply the glow of the sun by using bright yellows. So all it is Naples yellow, cad yellow, and just got a dry canvas now because all this is dry. I'm just smoothing it out just like we just did previously. I'm just going round it really gently, lifting up on the pressure, and there we go. So we've got this lovely glow, and we've got this lovely transition in the background sky, and we've got this lovely transition in the colours of our clouds. So now we're going to work on the ocean and the wave. So what we're going to do is we're going to dry our work before applying any painting tape, please, so you don't pull off what you've just done. Just measure a straight horizon halfway down your A4 canvas. If you're painting on A4, you can do it obviously bigger. And just create a straight horizon halfway down and just apply your painting tape, and we're going to start doing the ocean. So we're going to get some Naples Yellow and some Cad Orange or Matte Orange, whatever you prefer, and we're just going to create a nice peach tone again. So plenty of Naples Yellow, some orange, a little bit of pink, a tiny bit of purple just to make it more earthy and realistic. A little bit more pink just to heaten it up. And now we've got that tape, we're going to do the exact same technique where we use our big brush just to block it in. We've got that cobalt blue, so we know roughly where we're going to have the shadow for our big wave. So as I say, just go right up to the tape. If the tape is nice and flat, we'll get a nice straight horizon. So that saves us worrying about that. So just try to gently blend it. Don't worry if you get any streaks, we can go over it in a minute and just make it really nice and pretty like we did with the sky. So just block it in. And what this is this is going to be our underpainting. So just like we did with the sky, where we painted the sky first and then added the clouds on top, we're painting the colour of the ocean, and then we're going to add all the detail over the top. So this is going to be just down at the bottom here. This is going to be the wet sand that the water, sort of the carpet of water, comes over, and it leaves that really bright, wet, shiny sand. So what we're going to do, we're just going to go to the previous tone, which was purple, white, and Naples Yellow, and a dot of black. So just like the middle tone of our sky, and we're just going to use that to edge the bottom of our wet sand, just so it's a little bit darker in tone, and it's obviously a bit shimmering, so it looks like it's wet. So there we go. So if you can dry it with a hairdryer, you can just do the same trick as we did previously with our sky, where we make the exact same tones. So it's Naples Yellow, bit of orange, bit of pink, and a dot of purple, and we'll just go over the top and we'll take out all the streaks. So if you have any streaks like mine, because you've used watery paint, just dry your work with a hairdryer and you can just reapply it, and that should make your work look much more vibrant and get rid of any paintbrush marks. And I've said in previous tutorials, if you dry your work at each stage, if you make a mistake, you can always use a baby wipe and remove something because your background is dry. So look, we're just doing the X shapes again, and then we're just going to mix some of the background sky colour. So Naples Yellow, purple, white, and a dot of black. So there we go. And that should match the middle of our sky in colour. And we're just going to do the X shapes, and we're just going to blend it into that nice warm peach tone, and it should look like a gradual transition in colour, just like our sky. And this is going to be all the wet shiny sand coming up onto the beach. So there we go, just mix the two with the X shapes. Perfect. We're just going to take a little bit of that purple and white that we've got at the top of the painting, and we're just going to put it on the bottom just so it matches our sky colour. It's a little bit darker because obviously it's wet and shiny. So when you're happy blocking it in, I shall zoom out for you, and you should have a natural transition just like your background sky. So we've got this lovely heat and it gets cooler in temperature and colour as it moves towards the beach, and that will be our lovely sea colour. Now we're going to create a realistic wave colour now, so we're going to use earthy tones to do that. So we're going to use sap green, we're going to add some cobalt blue, some burnt umber, and a little bit more cobalt blue just to make it cooler. There we go. And then we're going to add a little bit of purple and a little bit of white. And we should just add a little bit more blue, a little bit more green. Now browns and purples make things look a bit more realistic. So by adding a little bit of brown and purple to blue and green and white, we create this really nice sort of deep wave colour. Now what we're going to do, we're going to use a flat-headed brush, and we're going to go right up to the tape. A flat-headed brush is totally straight, so it's much easier to do straight lines. So we're going to go right up to the tape, and we're going to leave the middle free. We're not going to go in the middle because we're going to use a different colour for the middle waves, because we're going to try to imply heat from the sun like we did our clouds. So we're trying to create dark waves, so just like our clouds, these are the waves that aren't getting as much sunlight, so they're darker in colour. So all I'm doing, I'm just going across and I'm just creating the caps of waves with my flat-headed brush. I'm just drawing lines, so watch, I'm just drawing little lines and I'm leaving gaps in between just to imply. I'm just going to shade this area just to frame the painting. So just like we did with our clouds, I'm just going a bit darker at the corners, just tipping my brush sideways and just glazing the painting just to make it darker at the edges. So look, tipping the brush sideways and just drawing lines, so just little lines. I'm just creating waves. And now as it gets towards the beach, I'm going across in the middle. So these are all the waves as they come towards the beach. And we're going to add a little bit of orange to our previous mix. And a little bit of purple. So orange and purple to the colour we just mixed. We're going to load up our flat brush and we're going to do the exact same technique but in the middle. So we're just going to make some more brownish colour waves. And again, these are all the waves, because the sun is directly behind them, these are all the waves that are picking up a bit of heat, so that's why they're more orange and brown. So again, really easy. We're just leaving the middle blank. We're just using this flat brush to create the illusion of waves. So all I'm doing is tipping my brush sideways to create lines that imply the tops of waves. Now around the sun it's going to be a lot brighter because obviously it's getting that heat from the sun. So by adding a little bit orange to our mix, we can make some harsh, bright waves. So all we're doing the same trick, but in the middle now we're much more brighter and vibrant in colour and tone. And because there's a big jump between the real bright oranges and that really dark, sort of greeny, earthy colour, we're just going to go back to the previously more purple colour, and we're just going to merge the two. So an in-between colour just to merge the two, just like we did with the clouds. So our transitions all match. Now the orange waves are a bit harsh, but we'll go over them and we'll soften them up. But what we're just trying to do is match the sunlight and the sort of heat from the sun. But we're going to block in our wave now. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that colour we mixed, that lovely greeny earthy colour, and in the middle we're going to create that colour to imply the light shining through the sort of barrel of the wave. And we're going to leave either side to the right and left. And we're just going to add a little bit more of that purple and blue. Now purple, blue and brown are great for darkening up areas. So we're going to use purple, blue and brown just to imply some shadow. And to the left and to the right, we're just going to make a slightly darker shade. And what that is, again, it's just to match the sunlight. It's all the areas that aren't getting as much sun, whereas the middle of that wave, the sun is shining up through it. And that's why it's got lighter in colour, because the sun is coming through the deep water. And while we've got that colour, we're just going to edge where the water comes up onto our beach and creates that divide between the wet sand. So easy peasy. Look at that. So purple, some brown, and a tiny bit of green. Some more purple and brown than anything. Don't worry if it mixes into your orange. We're just going to create this cool brown colour, and we're just going to block in our sand. So all we're doing, we're just blocking in all this sand. So there we go. And then in the very corner, we just want to make it a shade darker just to frame the painting. So we're just going to add some more burnt umber and a little bit of black and some cobalt blue. So we've saved our darkest colour in our black for the very edges. And we're just going to frame the painting. We're just going to do the X shape brushes, and we're just going to merge the two shades. So the darker shade into the lighter shade. And it should frame that corner nice. And we're just going to make the bottom left corner a bit darker, because that's where I want to sign it. Now if we remove our tape, we should have a lovely horizon. Ta-da! So don't worry if you've got any chalk marks or little bits of paint scuffed up. We can just neaten that up in a minute. But we're just going to put my sun back in again if it came off with the tape. So don't worry if that happens. See, I've got little bits to the left that have peeled off. Sometimes it happens. You can just rework it, so don't worry. So I'm going to take some cad yellow and some Naples yellow. I've got a bit of a dirty brush here, and some orange, and I think because I had a little bit of purple, it just made it a bit more dirty. It's made a kind of a yellow ochre colour. So just by adding a little bit more purple to the yellow and orange, we're just going to make this sort of in-between colour. I'm just going to make this area a little less harsh. So where we've painted those orange waves, they're a bit too vibrant, they're a bit too loud. So just making a more subtle tone, I'm just going to glaze over the top of them. So just like we did with the clouds, I'm just going over the top. So all I'm doing is just glazing them. I'm going to get some Naples yellow and some cad yellow and a tiny bit of orange. And I'm just going to swap back to my round-headed brush. So I've just got this medium round-headed brush. I'm going to take most of the paint off my brush, just using my clothes, but you can use a cloth. And I'm just going to glaze underneath my sun, just to create a nice sort of smooth shimmer on the water. And also what that does is it just makes those highlights less harsh. So again, we're just smoothing areas, we're just taking our time, we're relaxing, we're just smoothing around our sun. And what that does, look, we're just going over, and the darker colours are still shining through. So there we go, looks really pretty, and it pushes them back. So now we're going to create the barrel of the wave. So we've done the lovely colours, so we're going to start adding detail to our wave. So we're going to get some of that purpley, greeny blue and burnt umber colour, and we're just going to darken up to the left, and we're just going to put a little mini wave here. So this could be sort of the edges as it comes towards the beach and the shore. So we're going to mix some of that cool blue again. So we want to create cerulean blue and cobalt blue, a tad of purple, lots of white, and a dab of burnt umber this time. And we're just going to create this nice cool grey blue. We're going to swap to a smaller brush, and we're just going to create sort of the barrel of the wave. So they come round like a little bit of a barrel, so it comes around sort of smoothly diagonal, and we're just going to create splodges, and this is all the sort of wave as it crashes into the shallow water. So all I'm doing, I'm using that cool blue to emphasize all the wash and foam, and I'm just going to create a nice edge, and that should create the barrel of a wave. So look at that, super easy. And then we're going to take that dark purpley green that we just created, just going to add some more green to the mix, and we're just going to put some more green underneath, and you can put a darker shadow just underneath your waves. So I'll show you in a minute, just to make it look more 3D. So if you just get the darker tone, a little bit of black, blue, burnt umber, you can just use your flat brush and you can just go underneath where we just put our sea foam and just outline it, and just underneath the wave, just so it looks like it's crashing down into our beach. And that should create, again, really easily, a 3D wave. So there we go, that looks fantastic. So again, it's the colours that trick the eye and create the realism. So just by using a darker colour on the top, just to outline your wave, and underneath, just these are all the bits of the wave that aren't getting much sunlight, and it should, when we zoom out, look really real. So we're going to get some of that cool blue, and if you add a tiny bit of burnt umber to it, just to make it more natural and earthy, we're just going to create some sea foam. So all I'm going to do is create some squiggles. So I'm just going to create some zigzags. So all I'm doing is I'm loading up a fine liner, so a small headed brush, and I'm just creating, think of like veins or electricity, sort of zigzags, and all we're trying to do is create the illusion of sea foam. So as the water comes into the beach, it creates this lovely sort of carpet of shallow water that has all this foam. So what we can do, if we get that colour, first we can outline our edge, and this could be all the sort of froth as it comes up towards the beach. So if you give it a nice thick outline of that lovely blue, so there we go, nice thick outline. And just load up a thin brush and just try to create sort of zigzags that all sort of link up. So think of veins or roots of a tree. You just want to kind of create these sort of zigzag shapes, and this is all the foam in the shallow water. So if I zoom in for you, all we're doing is just creating shapes of this froth as it bellows into the beach. So all I do is I link it to the nice outline that we've got at the bottom, and I just create splats. I just make sure I'm using a thin brush just so they're nice and thin, and I just try to create random shapes that sort of interlink to imply the sea froth. You can have some sort of splatting against the big wave as it churns into the beach. So again, just take your time. Now I think our underpainting is a little bit too bright. The water as it comes onto the beach is always a bit darker because it's all sort of put together as it hits the beach and it sort of scrolls up. So what I'm gonna do, even though we've just put in these lovely blue lines, I'm just gonna let them dry really quickly, or use a hairdryer. And so they look cool. So an easy technique, but I think the underneath, that yellow orange that's shining through, is a little bit too bright. I want it to match our wave a bit more. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to dry it. So this is what I was saying to you, if you dry your work with a hairdryer and you need to correct things, you can just paint over areas, or you can wipe it with a baby wipe to correct things and then paint over it. So we're going to mix some of that colour we had for the wave, which was green, blue, purple and burnt umber. So we're going to create that lovely sort of grey green colour. And all I'm going to do, I was going to be really precise and put loads of little detail in, but I realised that would take ages. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap in 2 seconds, once the camera goes, I'm going to swap to a round-headed brush again, the small one. I was going to do it, as I say, with a fine liner, but I think A, it takes too long, and B, it doesn't get that nice sort of blurry effect. So again, just swapping tools, just swapping to a round-headed brush. Just like we glazed the sunlight, you can do that with darker colours. So we're going to wipe away most of the paint. We're just going to have a nice dark colour that we just had, that we just previously mixed, and we're just going to glaze a shadow instead. So just like we did under the sun with the yellow and with the clouds, you can glaze shadows. So I'm just using the exact same brush. Don't worry about your sea foam, we can put that back in a minute. What we're just trying to do, I'm just trying to create some shadow just to make the water, the transition in the water, look nice. I'm leaving a bit of the underpainting, the bright orange, in the middle because obviously it's getting that sunlight. But this is just to imply, because the wave's got its back to the sun, it would be casting a shadow onto the beach. So look, all I'm doing, I'm just making this area darker. So this is the great thing about acrylics. Unlike oil paints where you'd have to wait for it to dry, you can just paint over areas. You could just dry an area with a hair dryer, as I said, and just paint over it. And if you do make a mistake, as I say, if you went too dark or anything, if you've dried your painting, you can just wipe it away and the background underneath colour will still be there. So you can always, don't worry if you make a mistake. So look, all I'm doing, I'm just glazing, shading areas. And as I say, we'll put our sea foam back in. Now we know where it was. So we're just mixing the same cool blue colour, going back to a fine liner. We're just going to put it back over the top. Because we've got that nice transition of shadow underneath, now when we put our lovely sea foam back in, so we're just going to do the exact same technique. It should look a lot better because you've got a dark colour for the highlights to stand out against, but also it would just look more realistic because you have the shadow colour underneath. So same technique, just try to create zigzags. And just link it up to the base where you get that lovely sort of froth as it hits the shore. So just take your time, just rework areas. So again, just a bit like our sun, sometimes you just need to go over your sea foam once or twice just to make it look more vibrant. Just because, as I say, with acrylics, because they're water based, they sometimes pick up the undercolour, and because we've just put a shadow colour, or we've got that bright orange, sometimes just to make your blue more vibrant, you just have to do it once or twice over the top. But it doesn't take long. You see here now it's all starting to take shape. Got this gorgeous sunset that's all pushed back, and the wave and all the sea foam coming towards the beach. It's all starting to come together. So sometimes I just do little dots just to imply the sort of splats in the water and the bubbles. And you can always find a reference photo. Just look up Google Waves if you want to look up sea foam, just to, if you wanted to go a bit more photorealistic. So that's looking awesome. I've got too big a splodge there, so I'm just wiping it away. So as I say, if you have a dry underneath, if you make a mistake, you can just wipe it away. No worries. So that looks fam-dabby-dozy, that's looking cool. Let's have some reflection and splodge underneath the wave. Gonna make some cobalt blue, some brown, just to make a really dark colour. So cobalt blue and brown. And I'm just gonna outline the shadow with my fine liner. So I don't want to use black because I don't want to bring my wave really close to the viewer. I want to still have it pushed back. So that's why I'm using blue and brown to create a nice earthy dark shadow tone, but it's not too dark to bring the wave really forward. I still want it pushed back into the background. And I'm just going to go underneath it. And just on that corner, just to emphasize the sort of barrel as it comes over. And while I've got that colour, I'm just going to edge where the water comes up to the beach. So again, I'm just using a fine liner. So if you have a really fine tipped brush, it's much easier to do. So again, if you buy a multi-pack of different sizes of brushes, different types of heads, things like a flat head and stuff, all these brushes do all the work for you. My one for some reason was split in here. You can see it looks like the head of a troll doll. So I swapped brush and I just finished that edge. So if you just outline the edge with the dark colour, you should get a nice straight edge. There we go. And you can even, with your flat brush, just create a nice sort of mini wave. Get some nice sort of caps of waves. And that looks fantastic and real. Look at that. So we're going to get some Naples Yellow. Going to use my round-headed brush and a little bit of cad yellow, and just as I was saying, sometimes your highlights, once they dry, I'm just going to wipe away most of the paint to look a bit flat. So we're just going to go over the top and make them look a bit more vibrant. So gently hardly any paint on my brush. Got a dry brush, very soft, and I'm just blending that bright cad yellow and Naples yellow to imply the heat of the sun, that glow of the sun underneath it, straight underneath. Smear it a bit with my fingers just to make it more nice and smooth. Going to get some green and some Naples yellow. Just make a really sort of pastel lime colour. Add a little bit of heat, just a dot of orange. So green, Naples yellow and a dot of orange. Going to wipe away most of the paint again, and just under the sun, I'm just going to poke a hole in our wave. I'm just going to smear it because I don't want it too harsh. I just want it very subtle, and the same just on the tip of the wave. And these are the parts of the waves that are just where the sun is shining through the water. You just have a little bit of heat, and you just have a little bit of sunlight shining through the water. And the same, all I'm doing, I'm just glazing just this area here. So again, it's just to emphasize the sunlight. I'm just going to get some cobalt blue and brown. And just going to outline this edge. Again, just to make it more striking. The same on the top, just so we just have a subtle divide so we can see where the wave starts. So all we do, I'm just going over the shadows, so just like we did with the highlights. If you want to make your shadows a little bit darker, sometimes you just got to give it 2 coats. So we're going to create a shimmer. We're going to come straight down from the sun with some cad yellow, and we're just going to create a shimmer on our wet sand. So if you imagine the wet sand is like a mirror, so we're just going to edge our roundness of our wet sand with some bright cad yellow, and we're just going to emphasize the sunlight on our wet sand. So we're going to come straight down. We're just going to glaze over the top just so it all matches. So we've got this lovely shimmer in our ocean and on our beach. And then we're just going to get some orange, mix it into our cad yellow, and some Naples yellow just to make it back and pastel. So we're just going to create that peachy tone again. And all we're going to do, we're just going to glaze the dry canvas really gently either side of our yellow, and we're just going to create a shimmer in the wet sand. So we're just doing the exact same techniques that we've been doing throughout the whole painting. We're just glazing it and gradually lifting up on the brush. We're doing our X shapes, and we're just merging the 2 colours just so the transitions are really smooth. And all we're going to do is just get some Naples yellow, and right in the middle just make it a tad brighter. So again, we're just trying to create that shimmer, and we're just merging it, just gently glazing over the top, just to create the illusion of sunlight hitting our wave. And then if we take some white, add a tiny bit of cad yellow to it, you should get this lovely bright colour. Just going to put back in our sun again. So as I say, sometimes it's repetitive, but it does work. And we're just going to use that colour, just gently glaze below the sun, just a tad, just coming down, just to create a really bright light effect. So it's just white, a little bit of cad yellow, and we're just going to create some shimmer here on our wet sand. Just going to get some purple and white. So purple, lots and lots of white, and a dot of black to make the sky colour we had earlier. And we're just going to glaze either side of our wet sand just to create shimmer on it. So again, all we're doing, we're just edging that wet sand, and we're just making it look that it has shimmer on it. So again, we're using the colours to create the detail. So all we're doing, look, we're glazing over the top. That purple and white just gives the impression of shimmer. Super easy. And while we've got some of that purple and white, what we're going to do is just glaze just around the edge of the wet sand, and this just gives the impression of texture on our sand. So all these little details, as I say, they're not hard, but they all add up, and once you see the finished painting, it will look more real. Now what we're going to do, we're going to get some of that cerulean blue, cobalt blue, and we're going to add a little bit of white to it, and we're just going to go below the sun, and on some of our sea foam we're just going to add some highlights to match the sunlight. So cerulean blue, a little bit of cobalt blue, and an awful lot of white. So we're just going to make a really bright version of the cool blue that we used earlier. And just below the sun, we're just going to put some highlights just on some of the sea foam and on some, just the tip of that wave crashing down. And again, it's just to match the sunlight. So look, all we're doing, just putting some highlights on the edge. So again, it's just to match all the sunlight. So look, it's the same colour with just lots of white in it. And I'm just going to mix in between the darker blue and the light blue, just to have a medium blue. And just to the right and left of it, I'm just going to bridge the two colours together. So again, if you create a highlight and you have a shadow colour, just mix the two together and just interlink them, and the transition will look nice and steady. So you don't have a big jump between brights and cools. And what that highlight colour does, again, it just tricks the eye and creates realism through colour. So I'm just doing some dots. This could be all the sea foam smashing into the ocean. So look, it's very subtle. Look, if I zoom out now, but it does work. It makes it look like the sunlight is glowing down in the ocean. And what it does as well, it makes you look down the center of my picture. So it's almost like you're standing on the beach looking out towards the sun. So as I say, take your time, use a fine liner, it will do all the work for you. If you have to apply the paint twice just to emphasize the highlights, you know how to do that now. So look, just by going over it, the same colour, I can just emphasize it. And can you see how the cool blue either side of it looks like shadow now? So that cool blue to the right and to the left looks like the sunlight is cooling but we haven't done any detail. It's the colours. Man alive, this looks good. And I'm just adding some dots just with that colour, just to emphasise the frothiness of my seafoam. So now we've got our highlights in. I'm just going to use some pure titanium white on my sun. So I'm just making that look more vibrant. I'm going to go straight down from it, and I'm going to create a shimmer on the wet sand using just titanium white and a dot of cad yellow, but pure titanium white, so it's really vibrant and bright. I'm just going to use my finger just to make it smoother and less harsh. So I'm just smudging it, just to create that sort of shimmer look on the wet sand. I'm going to take some cad yellow, and I'm just, with a dry brush, just going to glaze this area. And again, just make it more smooth, just so make all the light match. And all I'm going to do is everything, like, see these outlines, I'm just going to go over again in the same colour. So all I used was cobalt blue and burnt umber. I'm just going to do the same on my wave just to make it look more 3D. I'm just going to make these waves a little bit darker using that colour. So as I say, nothing's hard. We're just taking our time, making sure all these colours work for us to trick the eye. So by just spending 2 minutes just emphasising some of your colours, because as I say, acrylics dry a bit flat. So if you want to make your highlights a little bit brighter or your shadows a little bit darker, just go back with the same colours and rework them. Now I was going to have a little wave here, but when I stood back I didn't like it. So as I said to you, look, if you've painted it in and it's dry, if you make a mistake, you can just use a baby wipe and wipe off just what you've done. So it's great. That's the great thing about acrylics. And then you can just put something back in. So never fret if you make a mistake. Even I make mistakes. Just dry your work, or you just use a baby wipe and just paint over it. So there we go. Put these highlights back in over the top where I just wiped. And she looks fantastic. Look at that. And I'm just going to make this bottom corner dark because I want to sign it there in the left hand corner. So I'm just going to add a little bit of black just so when I add my signature in white it stands out. And the same in the other corner just to frame it. So I've signed her in the bottom left hand corner. So you've learned how to do a realistic sunset painting. You've learned how to paint sunset clouds. You've learned how to do a shimmer on your ocean, how to paint a wave, how to paint sea foam, how to paint a lovely beach, and we've got our lovely shimmer in our sand. So thank you so much for watching this acrylic painting tutorial for beginners and intermediates. My name is Murray. Please like and subscribe if you haven't done already. We have plenty of painting tutorials here on my channel now. There's over 40. So thank you very much for all painting along at home. My name is Murray. Take care guys, and see you soon. See ya. Bye.